Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Once again, thank you so much for being here for this session. So my plan for this session is that I'm going to go once again through the presentation that I had in the Startup World stage yesterday. Going to kind of run through the presentation, bring up some of the aspects, and then diving a bit more in concrete steps. Okay, but then what does this mean for us? What we have to do, and make it into something that is a bit more actionable for yourselves. So for those of you, in case you have already listened to me yesterday, I'm going to repeat some of the aspects. I hope that's okay. So let me start by framing a bit where I think we are when it comes to responsible AI. It really feels like this. I don't know about you, but I feel that yeah, it's the Wild West. It feels like the Wild West. So this animated GIF comes from A Fistful of Dollars, and this is the story of a man, this stranger, played by Clint Eastwood, and he comes to this town that had this power balance, and he comes in and he really destabilizes that power balance. Um, I think that in many ways, it's very similar to what's happening with AI, and it's still not clear who is going to win out of this competition, really, where things will land. So very much the Wild West. Now, fun fact, and if you allow me to have a bit of a geeky moment, I also shared this in stage yesterday. I think that this animated GIF is particularly relevant to talk about the Wild West and AI, because, like I said, this comes from A Fistful of Dollars and from Sergio Leone. And Kurosawa, the film director, actually sued Sergio Leone for stealing his idea. He famously wrote, something like, "It was a great movie, but it's my movie." um, and again, it feels like AI with AI slop and everything that is happening in terms of taking ownership over people's faces, identities, and a lot of IP issues, etc. So I thought it fitted particularly well to talk about this Wild West atmosphere. But AI is the Wild West also for more reasons. I mean, let's look what we are foreseeing now in terms of consumption of electricity, for example. So there to the left, you have this graph, and you have the relation between data center electricity consumption in household consumption equivalents, and those conventional, if we're going to kind of compare, and we already see a very big increase when it comes to hyperscale, which is kind of most of the data centers at the moment. The largest under construction, you see that it goes to something like the equivalent to 2 million households. But some of the largest announced go all the way to 5 million. 5 million, just to put this in context, is bigger than Portugal. Portugal has 4 point something households, so it's bigger than Portugal in terms of comparison. So it's huge amounts of energy that it requires. Something also interesting is all the emissions that come from producing that energy, but also emissions when it comes to specific creative uses, let's say, of ways to produce this energy. So this is an image from the Colossus in Memphis, and a thermal image. And those red parts there in the picture are actually methane burners, burning methane constantly. At a given time in history, it was around 35. I think there's a few less. So Colossus is the data center for Elon Musk's XAI, right? And what they did was trying to be smart is that they put these methane burners, so it's absolutely a tragedy for climate, in trolleys, so that they were trying to find a regulatory loophole. Oh, the methane burners are not really here. It's a trolley, you can move them. But this has been having devastating consequences to the local community in Memphis that have really been complaining about problems in terms of air quality. And now in January, EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency in the US, came out saying, no, that's illegal, but nothing has happened yet. But very big challenges when it comes. So this is an example, right? Very big challenges when it comes to emissions, to water. One aspect that I haven't mentioned neither yesterday, neither today, has to do related to the construction of data centers is not only water, but land use, the space that takes, the lack of biodiversity that is a consequence of that land use, the waste. When we are talking about changing chips, changing computers, etc., there is a lot of waste of old chips, of old equipment. So we're talking about absolutely enormous numbers that I think are really at the core of one of the limitations in AI. When we go to these big, fancy tech events, we're talking with all these tech enthusiasts. There's no limit. The sky is the limit. There's nothing. This is just going to keep going. Well, I think that there are very concrete limitations. There's energy, there's water, there's planetary boundaries. There's very concrete limitations to what we can do with AI. And therefore, it's very important that we are aware of how we're implementing AI in our businesses, because once this balloon pops, we want to be prepared. We want to make sure that we have thought about that context. Now, to all this, if we also add AI and bias, so this is something I would say that probably is one of the aspects of AI that has been more widely discussed, which is absolutely great. But it feels like there's not so much that has been happening, nevertheless. So this bias, as you all probably know, it really has to do with if you use certain data to train your models, that data is feeding that model. So the model is going to build on that data. So if that data has some biases, wherever those might be, it's going to be reflected, of course, in the model in itself. And there has been discrimination towards women, towards older people, towards different ethnic groups, you name it, basically any kind of minority. So it's of course a big problem. And if to all this we also add the extreme lack of regulation. What I mean by extreme lack of regulation, at the moment, some of the world's biggest players of AI, which are based in the US, are running wild. And what we see is regulation in the form of terms of service in contracts, which I think is quite baffling. So what happened here is that Anthropic said, okay, we do not want our models to be used for mass surveillance and for autonomous weapons. And then that, so it was in their terms of service. And then they found out that that was in fact not the case in Venezuela, and now more recently in Iran. And therefore now there's this spat, and then the White House reacted, and so on and so forth. But the point I'm trying to make is really that, is something this powerful, I really don't think should be left to terms of service in a commercial contract. That's not what commercial contracts are for. So most of the days, most of the time, um, we are feeling quite confused about what's happening in AI. Most of the times, we are feeling that we cannot really foresee what's coming down the road, right? And I just wanted to introduce here this concept, this difference between risk and uncertainty. So risk is something that you can that you know that you don't know. It's something that you know, but you can estimate somehow. Is something that you can somewhat calculate the probabilities of something. It's this initial part of the road that we see there. Okay, I still see that there's this path, that there's somehow this direction. Uncertainty, um, it's this idea of uncertainty. It's Knightian and uncertainty from Frank Knight. The concept is that outcomes probability, it's fundamentally unknown. Okay, so it's very much, we know that there's something happening, and we we know that there's something happening, but we don't know what. Now, I think it's just reasonable, if we are in a business and we see so much risk and so much uncertainty, that we have an attitude, a starting point of being cautious. That being cautious does not, when it comes to responsible AI, does not mean we're not going to deploy AI. We're not going to invest in this. We are going to lose this race. No, we're going to do it, but we'll do it in a responsible way. Okay? So it's very much this idea that we just don't want to be left in the position of, is this really happening? What? Like, what? And I talk to a lot of businesses. I talk to a lot of business leaders. Um, I think that most of us are in this position. Are in this position. We are a bit unsure. Is this to me? Is like what's happening? This is Tuko from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So there's all this risk. There's all this uncertainty. We can either try to gamble on it, or we can have the responsible approach. And what's this responsible approach? What do I mean by responsible AI? Um, Responsible AI has been shown very recently to have very good business outcomes, improved return of the AI investment, enhanced customer experience, enhanced innovation, enhanced cybersecurity. So it feels the 2023, 2024, to a great extent, 2025, we have been playing a lot with AI. We have really been exploring, okay, this is happening. I say that 2026 and the future is when we really start going into responsible AI, when we start going to the governance of AI. It was good. We were playing around. Okay, now how we actually make this happen. And I have here, and this is really what I want to go through today, kind of very quickly, four points. And I think that if we're able to take these 4 points, I'm stealing this proudly from BSR, and you have there the link. Because I thought, when I saw this list, I thought it was really well accomplished. I think that if we are able to have this list as a bit of a checklist, in the back of our brains, and kind of go back to it constantly, I think we can slowly but surely really develop the capabilities for a responsible AI organization. Let's try to dive into each one of these points. So, point one: adopt a responsible approach to the development and deployment of AI. What is that? Your public commitments, your policies. Do you have articulated values, principles, expectations? And the idea is not that this is just a communication work. Someone decides and we do a campaign about this. But the idea of having a public commitment is so that there is this accountability. Okay, we are going to strive for this. This is what we want to do. That requires governance and accountability structures, right? From the moment that we start to create these policies, then and these principles, we need to follow up on them. So I think that these 2 points very much go hand in hand. And of course, establishing management responsibility. Who owns all this? Who is implementing? Who is monitoring? Who is managing all these processes? And if you have this commitment, if you have these policies, you have the governance structure, you have management, then you just need to keep running, reviewing, escalation. If something happens, how you do bring that aspect out of this section and move forwards, etc. Most of the times when we are talking, let me just go back for a second. Most of the times when we are talking about, okay, we need to do public commitment principles, or fine, okay, let's get the OECD principles, let's do something like that, and then we say we have these principles. That's what I mean, like doing just from a communication perspective. And that's valid, but I think it requires more. And it's not just about the AI principles. There's principles, there's frameworks, there's laws, there's voluntary guidelines, there's certifications, there's a whole range of frameworks that already exist that the organization can choose to commit itself to. Some are compliance requirements, but some are not. Some frameworks are just something that you can commit to. So I think it's useful to take some time, review all this, and which one of these we want to commit to. I am really curious now to hear from all these where you stand. So let's go. Actually, I think that that's the wrong Mentimeter link. Give me a second here. And I'm putting this presentation. This is the right Mentimeter link. So go to menti.com and put, please, this code. The code that you see in the screen. You can also just take your mobile phone, put in the camera mode, and read the QR code that you see in the screen. If you read the QR code that you see in the screen, you're able to immediately log in. And I would like you to just take a moment and from strongly disagree to strongly agree, share, where are you in your organization? First topic, our organization has made these public commitments for responsible AI, including human rights, sustainability, transparency, accountability, etc. There's clear governance structures that defines who oversees AI systems. And some basic thing that I thought it was good to highlight, high risk, very novel AI use cases, we do proper review before we launch them, for example. Just trying to have a bit of a sense of where we are here as a group. And I understand that probably to some bigger organizations, it's easier to have these policies in place, etc., and not to some smaller organizations. But still, just to have a feeling. Very good. Very much in the middle. Very balanced group. But one thing that is interesting is also a quite big spread. Quite big spread. Quite a few all the way to the right and quite a few all the way to the left. Okay, very good. Let's continue. And I'm going to continue sharing my slides, and let's jump into the second point. The second point is undertake human rights and environmental due diligence. What do we mean by this? Identify, address what are these human and environmental impacts across the value chain. Key human risks, are privacy, discrimination, freedom of expression, etc., labor rights, etc. Environmental risks, energy usage, water consumption, emissions, e-waste that I mentioned in the beginning, and assess the impacts of the entire AI life cycle. It's a concept that AI life cycle is becoming more and more mainstream, from the data, the models, the cloud infrastructure, deployment, etc. Really considering the risks. And I think that a useful tool when it comes to this due diligence of human rights and environment is, like I mentioned yesterday on my talk, use the double materiality on AI. You maybe don't know how to do double materiality. I'm sure your sustainability team will be very versed in double materiality. It's very much around looking into impact materiality, the impact that the company has on the planet, on society, on your stakeholders, and vice versa. Financial materiality, sustainability, and the impact on the company, in this case related to AI. And let's go back to here to the screen. Okay, Reunião, se faz favor. Obrigada. Depois logo, obrigada. Não, não, obrigada. Não, não, obrigada. This was so funny. It was the cleaning service. They wanted to clean the hotel room. Sorry. Sorry. Here we go. Undertake human rights and environmental due diligence. Where are we? Human rights and environmental impacts are assessed across the full AI cycle. Strongly agree to strongly disagree. We evaluate systemic risk from AI, not only risks from individual applications. I think that this is a quite relevant one. This is not just looking into the application in isolation, but kind of across this ecosystem of usage. And we take action to mitigate AI risks, including engaging with suppliers, increasing transparency, etc. So it really has to do with, this is not a one person's job. It is, again, working through the supply chain. Again, something that I'm sure the sustainability experts in your organizations are going to be quite good at. Very interesting. Slightly lower results than before. I think that this is to be expected. I think it's still relatively new that we are talking about due diligence in terms of human rights, environmental rights related to AI. It's something that we're starting to be more and more aware of, which is, again, I think absolutely fine. It's just a question of knowing this exercise that we're doing now. It's not about having the right answer, right? It's not about are we there yet or not, but this is related to that road image that I showed. What is it that we know? What is it that we know that we don't know? And what is that we have no idea? What's in the fog? What are the aspects that we cannot really address? But it's interesting. So a bit lower than before. Now, let's move into the the third point here, develop a responsible approach to sourcing, procurement, and end use. So it's really about understanding, and again, this has been, I think, very acute in terms of what's happening in the world, the geopolitical context that we live in. How does procurement fit? Who are you playing with? Who's your data supply chain? Who are your suppliers from the LLMs, etc. So just really having a responsible approach to the sourcing, to the procurement, and to the end use, the risks of the AI deployment, and making sure that we establish safeguards. Let me give you an example. This is the OECD due data diligence process, but I think that this is also very relevant to many aspects of the AI deployment. It's understanding okay, how does this fit with the responsible business conduct, the internal policies, the one that you've created in point one up there? Identify and assess the adverse impacts. What can go wrong? What are the aspects of the supply chain that you need to address? And cease, prevent, and mitigate those adverse impacts. These adverse impacts can be related to the data provenance, where the data comes from, it was collected legally or ethically, the labor conditions related to handling that data, for example, data annotation, because many data sets rely on outsourced work. Who is doing that? Are these people who are being exploited? And the bias and representativeness that we have also talked about before, privacy and consent to environmental impacts and so on. And then you have to track and implement those results, communicate, and then, of course, kind of start the due diligence process again. One aspect that I think is particularly relevant is that for some parts of the business, it is really okay that you do this, sometimes. The problem is when we are talking about the data that is being used in an AI, just because it's good today does not mean that it's going to be good tomorrow. Means that as you continuously get data, the new data can corrupt the system, can create can degrade that quality that you had in the system. So it might be okay, maybe not from one day to the other, but it might be that it's a great, very transparent process that you've created with due diligence, great data, everything is on the up and up, and then it's just not sometime after. Let me just very quickly also pass here to the Mentimeter. And let's go to the next question. Develop a responsible approach to sourcing, procurement, and end use. So from strongly disagree to strongly agree, where are we in terms of we can conduct due diligence on the data supply chains, including labor conditions? The environmental criteria, are they being considered when selecting AI infrastructure? Do we assess risks related to the AI system? And one aspect here that I think is really important is related to the different markets. Do we define clear limits on acceptable AI use cases? Do we have that clear for ourselves? This is acceptable, that is not. So all these are very important questions. A bit more balanced, I think, a little bit more in the middle, a little bit more close to more than the second point, I would say. Quite balanced. Still some spread, but quite balanced. And then if you allow me, finally, the last point, the fourth point, is explore how AI can support your sustainability goals. This is also something that I have been talking so often about, is AI for green AI that is done responsibly, but also AI for green, AI used in a way that is going to help you within your sustainability goals. Talking about green, it doesn't necessarily mean climate, but sustainability in general. So our organization explores how AI can support sustainability goals, strongly disagree to strongly agree, or we use AI to improve energy efficiency and reduce emissions. And finally, we explore AI applications for climate risk analysis and environmental modeling. Just giving a few minutes to answer. And I believe I need to wrap up soon. So interesting. Our organization explores AI within sustainability goals a little bit higher than the rest. So I think that what I want to say, key takeaways, is really responsible AI brings value to the business and AI implementation efforts. And it goes beyond just having principles or policy, or it's really about continuous monitoring, assessment, improving. And responsible AI is proactive, how we can solve challenges and how we can contribute. Wherever law ends, tyranny begins. If we don't have systems, if we don't implement responsible AI, we're leaving space to the Wild West. What are you going to do about it? Thank you so much.